Okay, right, so it will... Right, let's close my laptop so it doesn't interfere. Right, okay, so I'm ever so sorry about this. This is, I've been doing outreach with 300 primary school children today in a very large secondary school hall. So let's hope we hold out through the end of this. So what I'm talking to you about today is some very early work that we've been doing in biosciences. And just thanks to Phil for the introduction. It's been a real pleasure to have the opportunity to work with Phil and have his support on everything we do as well. So we are we have a cohort of around 270 in School of Biosciences. We are in the process of redesigning our curriculum just to, bring things a bit up to date, as we all do every now and then. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. What we wanted to do was make sure that our students are really involved in this curriculum redesign. Now, one of the things that comes with that is that I can send out 1,000,001 surveys, and Phil and I do. We do some digital and blended learning surveys, and across the division, we might get some pretty good engagement. But the problem is that they don't necessarily tell you all that much. You don't necessarily get the in-depth opinions from students. So what we decided to do, I went along to a Royal Society co-creation session, and I have to say I saw some excellent work from other colleagues. So I have to credit all of them with thanks that they enabled me to think about this in such a broad way. In particular, I saw an excellent presentation from the University of Derby that still stands out in my mind today. So it's great things like this to share these things that can lead on. So what we did is we decided to run some co-creation workshops. We decided to do this at very short notice. So it really was just getting this set up, and we had to, as everybody knows, working in a university, sometimes the paperwork has to be in fast. So on this occasion, we had to move a bit quicker than we would have liked. So we did have to, as it was at the end of year, invite students by email. It did mean we got lower participation than we would like, and something we're looking at now is funneling students into co-creation sessions, for example, after a lab or in the middle of a lab, and maybe getting them in and trying to make sure that we're not just selecting those students who would answer an email or respond to a survey, that we're getting some real diversity. But what we wanted to do was just take them through a co-creation to really get some insight. And you know what, even with just a few students, the insight we got was so amazing. So next slide, please. So this is, I'm just going to talk you through the slides that I showed them, because I think that's the best way to do this. So we literally asked them this question: what should your degree look like? We have 3 degree programs, and we asked them what the degree should look like. So next slide, please. And we started to tell them that we're thinking about what are the characteristics of the degree, and we know what we think a degree should be, but what we really want to know is what they think a degree should be and how that has changed across their journey. So we didn't invite stage 1 students, we only invited stage 2 and 3 because we really wanted to make sure we were looking at how students got across their journey. Next slide, please. So something we thought was really important was to set out the boundaries of this. So something we did is to make it clear to our students that this means us working as partners. I worked very closely with 2 wonderful academics, Marta and Richard Williamson, who is our Marta Farbamonte is our Director of Studies, and Richard's our Assessment and Feedback Lead. And we made it clear both to us as colleagues and to the students that a co-creation means us working as partners. So a co-creation doesn't mean that the students tell us things and we have to do them. A lot of people are nervous about co-creation because they think it means that perhaps the students have more power. Than you don't always want them having the full power. We want to make sure we're influencing those decisions too. But equally, it shouldn't be about them telling us things and us not listening. So it's got to be collaborative, it's got to be reciprocal, and we made those expectations clear that we want to be in the middle of this ladder at the beginning. Okay, next slide, please. So the first thing we did was this. So this is what we did. We asked them to say, what has your degree been like so far? If you could pick one of these pictures, which one are you picking to describe your degree journey so far? And so you can see we've got a diversity of different pictures there. And what was really important was we had academics who were happy to engage with this process as well and share their own experience. So if you could please now move to the next slide. So I just give you an example of a few of the things that were said here and some of the things that we garnered from this. I think it's really interesting that student 1 was saying, compared it to last year, to the ice and being isolated and cold, but they want their degree to be busy and happy and exciting. And as much as we were trying to create that community, I guess COVID did make it more of an isolating experience. Some students, they identified with the wreath, for example, but they wanted things to be more like the picture where there's many levels of learning, and they wanted to feel that they understood that they needed different levels of learning. And as lecturers, we contributed that as well. So I found my degree maybe a bit too busy, and I wanted it to be more tranquil. So that was really quite an interesting experience as well. So we just got them talking and thinking, and even just through this process, they really talked to us a lot about what the last year had been like and given us a real insight into their world, I would say. Next slide, please. We then decided, so this is where the blended bit comes in, and I've got to say I feel a bit of a fraud because we had so few students in the room. In the end, we got into such a discussion with them that we didn't ask them just to use VVox, but this is the intention. Once we start to work with bigger groups, we're going to very much use VVox to do this. So we've invested recently in VVox at the University of Kent. And that's in no small part thanks to Phil and us having a good working relationship there as well. So I'm really pleased that we're able to use this. And so we didn't end up using it on this occasion, but this is my thoughts because I can gather the students' opinions much quicker using VVox than if I just have 3 or 4 students in the room. But they identified lots of different things that they associate with a curriculum. So they did name modules, pretty standard, that's fine. But also what was really interesting is they did name all of the different learning modalities, and they gave us a really good insight into what they want to see more of. And so, for example, labs were harder during COVID, so that was talked about quite a lot, although in our standard programme, those would have been more anyway. Next slide, please. And then comes the real fun. There's lots of pedagogy around serious Lego play, so I don't need to explain that to you. If you want to go and have a look at it, then you can. I actually had to use my own children's Lego for this first session because we didn't have any. But we asked them, what defines a perfect curriculum? And you're going to see they actually interpreted this question in a bit of a different way. They wanted to tell us something else, and that's fine, because then we still got a sense from them. So if we can go to the next slide. So here are some of the wonderful models that our students built. And I don't have a pointer that I can use now because we're working around the technology. But for example, in the top corner there, you can see one that's got a purple platform and a car next to it. And this was wonderful. The student said the door was them coming through from their A levels. They felt all flowery and happy. They talked about that the car was them driving it, and they had lots of friends along the way. But in the end, you have to drive your own car and guide your own journey. So they understood responsibility. They talked about the window being a view to the world outside. And this was actually then very strongly linking into some of the employability. And they really did focus in on employability and their view to that within the curriculum. And also they put a lovely wise owl there, which I'm not sure it's really representative, but it's meant to be us as lecturers. Other students interpreted this in a different way. So for example, you can see one that's on 2 levels, that's the lab at the bottom, and then is the lecturer at the top, and that they understood that the 2 things need to intertwine really, really well. And the one with the skeleton, again, this was a door coming through from A levels. There was a fire in there, that there will be fires you have to put out. You have to learn to put those out for themselves. They want to be enabled to do that. And the skeleton was some of the more difficult aspects of the degree, that there will be challenges and that that's okay. And all of them, interestingly, put trophies and rewards at the end, that they always had their eye on the end goal, and that they wanted to be reminded that there was an end goal there. And so each of them at this stage, while we built these models, they talked us through at the end, but it took 10, 15, maybe even longer to build these. And they just chatted to us about everything that was good, bad, and everything in the middle about our curriculum. It was so informative. I came away with so much knowledge afterwards, and it really helped us to be able to go and feed back to our academics and colleagues in the curriculum review to say, actually, these are the modules that they would like to change, and this is how they would like to change them. And they really gave us some quite specific information and some really valuable ideas as well. Next slide, please. We also then at the end did this. I'm not going to show you what they came up with this because they hand wrote, and some of the things I wouldn't break that confidence from the students. But we asked them some specific questions, and we asked them, blue sky, tell us just in your dreams, if your degree could have been anything in your dreams, what would it have been? And it was really interesting that they embraced some of the things that traditionally we think are harder. They were actually quite happy to have more of. Now, as I say, the caveat to that is that these students were the ones who answered the email, and we really need to now get out to those groups, as I said, where we siphon them off and try and reach different people. And I think, next slide, please. Just to say then, I am now trying to set this up over the summer that we will use this much more widely. We're developing these workshops, trying to make them applicable to different questions, making sure we can use VVox to capture some of this as well, making sure we could do it online if we need to and want to suit our students' needs, because actually if they've just got some Play-Doh in their house or anything, a pen and paper, they can join in with this. And of course, the big important question has been for the division, how much Lego should we buy? And I'm happy to say they are investing in this. So that's me. Sorry, I've rushed through because of the technology problems, but I hope that gives you an oversight of what we're doing.